Hello everybody, welcome into another lesson. Today we are going to do subtraction of real numbers. And we're going to start with a case that is most familiar to everyone here. We will have positive minus a positive, case 1. Case 1 of positive minus positive is what everyone's familiar with here. For example, we have 19 minus 17, right? We have a case here where the first number is bigger or greater than the second number. Whenever the first number is greater than the second number, you're going to get a positive result. It's a simple subtraction problem. 19 minus 17, that's positive 2. Right? So there's that. Or let's say you get 15 minus 3. Well, again, the first number is greater than the second number, so you're going to have a positive result. 15 minus 3, a normal subtraction problem, it would just be 12. Right? So the case 1 is where you have the first number bigger than the second number. It's just your classic subtraction problem that you're already used to. Don't think we need to spend a lot of time on that. But case 2, on the other hand, is a little bit different. Case 2, let's say you have something like 7 minus 19. Well, what you have here are still, you have a positive number minus a positive number. However, the first number is less than the second number. Whenever the first number is less than the second number, whenever you're subtracting two positives, you'll always get a negative result. What you can temporarily do is, instead of 7 minus 19, you can turn this into 19 minus 7 temporarily, switch them around, which 19 minus 7, well, that's 12. But since we determine we're going to get a negative result, you need to slap a negative sign in front of the answer. You'll get your actual answer of negative 12. So whenever you have a positive number minus a positive number and the first number is less than the second number, you'll always get a negative result. So be aware of that. Alright, so we have 25 minus 26, right? 25 minus 26. Well, this is a case of a positive minus a positive. However, the first number is less than the second number. So again, what you could temporarily do is switch them around, make it 26 minus 25, which a classic subtraction problem of 26 minus 25 is equal to 1. But we've determined the result's going to be negative, so you slap a negative sign in front of the 1. You'll get an answer of negative 1. That would be your answer, negative 1. Alright, let's say we have 100 minus 174, right? What you got here, again, it's a positive minus a positive, but the first number is less than the second number. So what you could temporarily do is switch places, make this 174 minus 100. Then what you'll have, of course, 174 minus 100, that's 74. But since we determined the final result's going to be negative, you just slap a negative sign in front of that 74. You'll have the result being negative 74. So that's what you do in a case 2 of a positive minus a positive when the first number is less than the second number. Simple enough. Alright, let's talk about something interesting here. Positive minus a negative. And there's only one case for this. Positive minus a negative. So I have 25 minus negative 7. So minus 7. Well, what the heck is that? Minus will always turn into plus. Whenever you have minus, that always turns into plus. So this positive minus a negative just turned into a standard addition problem. 25 minus 7 means 25 plus 7. This just turned into a standard addition problem. So 25 plus 7, that's 32. And you will always get a positive result whenever you take a positive minus a negative. It's always a positive result. Alright, let's say you have 3 minus negative 9, right? Well, we have 3 minus means plus, so you have 3 plus 9. This just turned into a normal addition problem. This will equal 12. So the answer would be positive 12. Alright. Let's say we have 75 minus 32. Okay? So, of course, you're going to have 75, but minus 32 means plus 32. We just turn this into a normal addition problem. 75 plus 32, that's going to equal 107. So your answer would be positive 107 for that. So positive minus negative is pretty easy. Now let's switch this around here. We're going to switch this around a little bit. We're going to do a negative minus a positive. Also, there's only one case for this. A negative minus a positive. So let's say you have negative 32 minus 3. You have a negative number minus a positive number. What that is the same thing as whenever we subtract a number, whenever we minus a number, that is the same as adding a negative of that positive. Whenever we subtract a positive number, that's the same as adding a negative of that number. So now all of a sudden this just turned into the sum of two negative numbers, which is easy to treat by taking the absolute value of both numbers, the sum of both numbers, take their absolute values, the sum of both absolute values, and then put a negative sign on the front of it. So the absolute value of negative 32 is, well, 32. The absolute value of negative 3, well, that's positive 3. 32 plus 3 equals 35. But since both terms in the original equation are negative, you're just going to slap a negative sign on the front of that result. You'll get your final answer of negative 35. So whenever you have a negative minus a positive, you'll always get a negative result. So let's say you have negative 9 minus 7, right? Negative 9 minus 7. Well, it's important to remember that whenever we take a number and we subtract a positive number, that's the same as adding a negative of that number. So negative 9 minus 7 turns into negative 9 plus negative 7. Now we just want to take their absolute values. So we'll take the absolute value of negative 9 plus the absolute value of negative 7, which would give you 9 plus 7. 9 plus 7 is 16. And since the original equation here had negative numbers, well, you would just add two negative numbers, you slap a negative sign on the front of the answer, and you'll get negative 16 for your answer. It'd just be negative 16. Alright, let's do one more for this type. Let's say we have negative 73 minus 17. So we got negative 73 minus 17. Well, that's the same thing as negative 73. We have minus a positive. That's the same as adding a negative. So negative 73 plus negative 17 is what it would turn into. Well, we know how to deal with the sum of two negative numbers. We just take the sum of their absolute values and slap a negative on the result. So the absolute value of negative 73 plus the absolute value of negative 17, that's going to give you 73 plus 17, which that answer is 90. But since both numbers in the original equation are negative, you just slap a negative sign in front of the answer. Your answer would be negative 90. So that's really all there is to negative minus positive. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't do negative minus negative. We have a negative minus a negative. Case 1. You'll see in a minute why we have two different cases. Let's say we have negative 5 minus negative 8, right? So we have a negative minus a negative. Well, what we have now is we have negative 5 minus minus, so that's plus, negative 5 plus 8, which, by the commutative property of addition, we can switch these around. That would equal 8 plus negative 5, which is equal to plus a negative. Well, that's just a minus. That'd be 8 minus 5. We'd have a classic subtraction problem. 8 minus 5, that would give you 3. So, this case 1 here is whenever, of course, you take the commutative property of addition and you switch the numbers around, because minusing a number is the same as adding a negative of the number. That's how we can do that with the commutative property of addition. And plus a minus, that's a minus. And we have a case 1 here. This case 1 is when the first number is greater than the second number, you get a positive result. So it kind of almost, it goes back to a positive minus a positive case 1. Whenever you have the first number in the subtraction being greater than the second number. I got more though. Let's say we have negative 17 minus negative 23, right? So we have another negative minus a negative. Well, that equals negative 17 minus minus is plus 23. By the commutative property of addition, which means you can switch the terms around, what that means is you're going to have, of course, 23 for your first term, but when you minus a positive number, that's the same as adding the negative of that number. That's the same as adding the negative. So 23 plus negative 17, well, whenever you add a negative number, that's the same as subtraction. It would be 23 minus 17, which, whenever you have the first number being greater than the second number in the subtraction, you always get a positive number, which would be 6. The answer to this one would be 6. Alright. So negative minus negative case 1 turns into positive minus positive case 1. It's kind of interesting how that works. Let's say we have negative 100 minus negative 118, right? We have a negative minus a negative. Well, what this is first going to turn into is negative 100 minus minus 118 is plus 118, right? But by the commutative property of addition, we can switch these two terms around, which would make this 118. When you have minus a number, that's the same as adding its negative. So that's how we can use a commutative property. You're simply adding its negative. And of course, when you add a negative, that becomes a simple subtraction problem. So, and in this particular subtraction problem, it's like case one of positive minus positive. Because the first number is greater than the second number, you'll get a positive result. 118 minus 100, that's just simply 18. And that would be your answer. Would be positive 18. But let's do case two of negative minus negative. Case two of negative minus negative is actually going to turn out to be case two of positive minus positive. It's just a different spin on it. So let's say we have negative 17 minus negative 6, right? Well, of course, you're going to start out by taking, it'll be negative 17, but minus 6 is actually plus 6, right? It'll be negative 17 plus 6. Which, by the commutative property of addition, what you can do is take these, switch them around. You'll have positive 6. Whenever you do minus a positive number, that's the same as adding the negative of that number. You'll have 6 plus negative 17, which would equal 6 minus 17. You're now to case 2 with a positive minus a positive. Whenever, again, reviewing what we talked about earlier in the lesson, whenever the first number in a subtraction problem is less than the second number in a subtraction problem, you're going to get a negative result. So what you can temporarily do, like we did in case 2 of positive minus positive, switch these numbers around, do 17 minus 6, which turns out to be 11. But since we determined the solution is going to be negative, you just slap a negative in front of that 11, you'll get negative 11 for your answer. So this is actually probably the hardest one of subtracting negative minus negative. We're probably on the hardest case. So if you can just remember that negative minus negative turns into positive minus positive, and you can remember the two cases of positive minus positive, you'll be able to do negative minus negative. Say we have negative 5 minus negative 2, right? So we got negative 5 minus negative 2. Well, first, that is the same thing as negative 5, and you have minus minus, which is plus 2. Negative 5 plus 2. So then, what you're going to want to do is use your commutative property of addition, move these around. You'll have your 2. Whenever we have a minus 5, that's the same as plus a negative of 5. That's minus 5, which you would have 2 plus negative 5. Whenever you have a minus on the front, it's plus a negative, if that makes sense. Which we know 2 plus a negative is equal to minus. You'll have 2 minus 5. We're back to case 2 of positive minus positive. Whenever you have the first number in the subtraction problem less than the second number, you can temporarily pull this trick of 5 minus 2, switching them around, which would give you a simple subtraction problem, which would give you 3. But since we've determined that the solution will be negative, you're just going to take that 3, slap a negative sign on the front of it, and you'll get negative 3. Let's do one more example here. Alright, let's say we have -10 minus -5. Right? So the first thing you want to do is take that -10, minus means plus. You'll have -10 plus 5. By the commutative property of addition, meaning the numbers move around, you could switch the numbers around. You'll have 5 plus -10. You'll have 5 plus -10, which is the same as 5 minus 10. Well, again, we have positive minus positive case 2, where the first number is less than the second number. So what you can temporarily do, switch these numbers around. You'll have 10 minus 5. 10 minus 5 we know to be 5. But since we determined the solution is going to be negative, you slap a negative sign in front of that 5. You'll get a solution of -5. So really, if you can know that a negative of a negative is a positive, and know for sure that if you know the two types of positive minus positive cases, you'll know how to handle negative minus negative cases. They turn into the same thing. It's just whenever you have in a subtraction problem with two positive numbers, the first number being less than the second number, you'll always get a negative solution. If it were the first number bigger than the second number, you always get a positive solution. So that's really all I got here for this. Next lesson's going to be easier. It'll definitely be easier. It's going to be multiplication of real numbers. Multiplication, when you're dealing with negative numbers, is actually quite simple. It's easier than what we've done the past two lessons. So, hope everyone has a good night, and take care.